This is a homage beat.
Believe there's a God at all.
Correct.
So this person doesn't believe there's any God, any standard. They created their own. Like it just comes from like tomorrow. I feel like this to that, and not trying to make these like people like look a certain way, but I'm just trying to get that understanding. Like you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because again, what if we believe in God? So what's our standard? God.
Yeah.
But if there's no God, I do what's right in my own eyes.
Right.
I'm a standard to myself, and if I'm a standard to myself, if I do something that society deems wrong, I can say like again, I hate to make it so trivial, lying. If we say we lie and say, as long as you lie and it don't hurt nobody, then it's cool, right?
Yeah,
that's what we do.
Yeah.
But because we determining what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. If there's no God to make that determination for us, we take His role and we make, hey, what's right and what's wrong. It ain't wrong for people to walk around naked. That's what I deem as right. Somebody else may say something else. You know, so who's right and who's wrong in that situation? So again, I'm just trying to get those people to think, you know, that you can't say such and such is wrong if you don't have an absolute standard of what is right. Our absolute standard of what is right is Scripture.
Yeah.
What's yours? Yourself? Well, that's subjective.
For sure.
You know, and so I continue saying just this idea of nakedness, this idea of clothing, and I kind of make a bold statement. I say it's universally known that being naked in public is wrong. I say it's not inherently wrong, but it's wrong because of what it symbolizes. Being naked symbolizes guilt and shame. I say, however, being naked is not a problem. I say being naked in front of another person is. And so my question to you is, what's so wrong? Because I don't want people to take away that just being naked is inherently wrong because you take showers every day. So there ain't nothing wrong with that. What I'm trying to argue for is that being naked is symbolic of guilt and shame, and that we should be very careful of being naked in front of someone else. That's the real danger. And what's wrong with that? I think you kind of hit on it earlier, but try to flesh that out for us. Like, what's wrong with being naked in front of another person who, like you said before, you're not in a committed relationship with?
Yeah, and when I hear you say naked, as I'm reading, I'm not necessarily only thinking about just not having clothes on. You know what I'm saying? I'm thinking like more in a way, I guess the word would be figuratively like that. It could be that I'm exposing myself like to the things, my deepest thoughts.
Yeah.
And I'm letting you know without really building any relationship with you, not knowing what your standard is. Because if I'm just like going out here just talking about my life to you and I'm telling everything to you and I just got to know you, but then I don't know you're a gossiper and you're going to go back and put like on Facebook like, yo, Jermaine just said this. I can't believe it. This guy weak. This guy soft. I can't believe he really shared this with me. If I don't know that about you because I don't know the standard that you live your life by, that could be an issue, man. Like if you're not really being calculative about who you're really exposing yourself to, because it goes from just being figuratively like talking about being naked in the sense of like expressing your emotions and your feelings. That's tough for men.
Yeah.
That's really tough. Like that's something we don't really do until we get to know somebody. And even when we do, we still might kind of throw some like joke a little bit so we don't get too deep or get too sensitive in our own words, which we try to say sensitive like it's a bad thing when it's really not. But if we're even talking about in the sense of just that, just physically naked, like our bodies are naked and you see someone naked, like in our culture, that just means we're about to have an interaction, a sexual interaction. That's what our thoughts mainly go to. Like we looking on the internet and we see a woman naked up there, like generally, like for me now, I'm like, whoa, I gotta get away from this. Like this is something I shouldn't be doing. This is something I shouldn't be looking at. So like it just shows to the sense that like, what's my reasoning? What's my perspective on like this nudity, like this being naked and this intimacy? Like, so where's my mindset? What's my perspective? Where's my heart at? Like I need to really check my heart on this thing because I need to understand like what's my perspective on it and really get to some understanding of like you're talking about the guilt. You're talking about the shame, like being able to understand that there's a standard I can live to and I don't have to go with the standard of what the world is saying. So I can have a different perspective on being naked figuratively, like speaking, being intimate, or even being naked like physically because I know I have a standard. My standard is like, I don't really want nobody to see me like that except for my wife. I don't need to see any other woman like that except for my wife. Because like I go in the gym, and so we all and dudes go to the shower, take a shower. Like I see like another dude walk past you naked, it's like whatever. You know what I mean? Bother you because your perspective, your thought is like, I'm just getting in here, get a shower, I'm getting out. Like there's no other thoughts about it. Like it's whatever to you. But if I went to the other gym, the other locker room, and it's women, well, I don't know how women do that. I don't know if they do the same thing or not. So I think it's really like a heart check, man.
Yeah, and so I say being naked in front of another means no one can no longer hide one's flaws and imperfections.
Yeah.
I say as a result, one lays bare for others to see. So like I said, for those listening, we talking nakedness in a literal sense, but as Jamel said, don't just only think of it in a literal sense, think of it figuratively because we gonna get there. But I think Jamel hit it right on the head. I say, therefore clothes our way to hide our flaws and imperfection.
Yeah.
This is why Adam and Eve clothed themselves after they had sinned. They became aware of their guilt and shame and sought to hide from God. And I think this is huge, especially in the society that we live in today, because just in the past couple months, we've learned the word revenge porn, right?
Yeah.
Learn where something happens and someone leaking news and this, that, and the third. What's the point of leaking news? To shame and humiliate someone. That I've got something intimate about a person and I'm going to use that against them to shame and to humiliate them.
Yeah.
And it's like you only want to be intimate with someone like that who's not going to do those things to you.
Bro. Exactly.
But if somebody catch you, it's it's fair game, and I don't necessarily again I hate doing pop culture, but it's just so relevant, and everybody's talking about it, so why not? Mr. Pusha T exposes Drake. He found out some information that he was trying to keep personal behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And you can say whatever reason Push did it, because Drake mentioned his fiance, whatever, so everything was fair game. But that's the whole point that we're making, is that I find out something intimate about you, and I'm going to use it to expose you. That's what we do as human nature.
Yeah.
We just trying to expose another person to humiliate them. And I get it, so I want to keep it in context. I understand they just dissing each other, but there's a deeper meaning behind it, where I'm just trying to expose, I'm trying to let it bear, because now everyone can criticize and humiliate Drake. And granted, I'm sure if Drake responds, he's going to try to do something to humiliate Push. So it's like, I get it, but it's like, that just shows who we are as human beings.
Exactly.
That I want to be intimate with someone who's not going to do those things to me.
Yeah. That's legit.
And so I say again, most dismiss the biblical account, but there is no shame in denying. But there is no denying there is shame in being naked in public. I say, in addition, there is no denying feeling of guilt when we do something wrong. Shame and guilt are evidence of an absolute standard. If one can remove the existence of an absolute standard, we can remove the feeling of shame and guilt. And I wish I would have done a little bit more studying on this, because I don't want to group all people who participate in this type of lifestyle as someone who's trying to deny God or deny like any absolute standard. But I think I'm pretty safe in saying those who participate in a lifestyle of who's a nudist, they don't feel any type of guilt, any type of shame in doing it. And so my question, because again, I don't think this is a topic that most people within the church have, because I guess it really doesn't affect the majority of us, but would Scripture consider being a nudist sinning?
Honestly, I don't know, bro. Because it's like, I guess it just all depends on what I'm doing when I'm naked.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if I'm naked, just sitting here, chilling, I'm outside, somebody sees me, nothing happens, we talk, have a conversation, we never look at each other sexually, and we just keep it moving, what's the problem?
Yeah.
I don't know, but tend to be in our westernized culture, I'm a man, I see a woman sees a man, they're attracted to him, they see him naked, your body reacts, which causes you to sin if you're not married to that person. So I see that's where issues could come in quickly when you've exposed yourself in that way to another person. But I don't know per se where Scripture would directly rebuke being a nudist.
Yeah, and like I said, it's a tricky conversation, because I think the first thing someone would jump to is say, automatically you're lusting after the person.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't know too much about nudists, but I'm pretty sure they're not walking around all, like you said, biologically aroused or whatever the case is. And it's like they're able to function where I don't want to say a normal person, if they're not in that environment, like they be gone bonkers, Yeah. And so it's like, will we say that they're sinning? And the reason that I'm bringing up that question, because I would tend to argue yes, even though, again, I would need to do a little bit more research. The reason I would argue yes, they're sinning is because nakedness is symbolic of shame and guilt. And so to remove that shame and guilt is, again, not to acknowledge that, hey, there's some shame that goes along with being naked. And I understand they may be trying to refute that there shouldn't be any shame, there shouldn't be any guilt. So I understand that, but to do it so blatantly and to flaunt it, I think it's kind of a smack in the face to God. But yet at the same time, it's like there may be a tight-knit community where they're not looking to humiliate or expose someone else. But I think just Scripture makes it clear that our nakedness is symbolic with our shame and guilt. And like you said, that the only scriptural relationship where you can be naked and exposed, both figurative and literally, is within the marital relationship. Yeah. I don't think that God intended that to be a communal thing, that you just walking around naked with one another. But yet at the same time, I don't know if we could argue it's definitely, absolutely, positively sin,
And I guess it's just looking from our own perspectives ourselves. I mean, it's not something like, you a American dude, like you're 20-something, and you're just walking, it's like you and like 30-some other people, and 15 men, 15 women, and you just see, and it's 15 naked women. Like, that's not something that is going to work out well for you. It's just not if they're not married to one of them, like, even if you are married to them, that's even worse, because you're seeing all these other women, you're exposed, like, they're exposed in this way. As a man, like, I would even check myself just going to the pool or something, like, just really thinking about, like, doing things and looking in an appropriate way, man, because just really understanding what's going on within me, because, there are people that are able to sit there and do things and it doesn't bother them, but, I think God's absolute standard lets us know that, like, when you're talking about the marriage bed, like, you have to be careful and know yourself and know where you are and know where God has you spiritually.
Yeah, and so like I said, that's what I would argue, that just the shame symbolically is connected to our shame. That being a nudist, the reason that I would say is sinning is connected nakedness with shame and guilt, and to be in an open relationship that with someone who is not your spouse is kind of just, again, you just rejecting any absolute standard that God has placed. Because it could be a situation where they're not like making fun of each other, they're not thinking sexually, so we couldn't argue, hey, it's sin because of those things. I think just naturally, again, when we're talking about nakedness, we can't just view it as something from a physical aspect, but we've got to view it figuratively as well. And what Scripture teaches us about nakedness, and we see it in Genesis, and then we also see it in Revelations, that once they had sinned, they became aware of their nakedness and they had become ashamed. So nakedness and shame is connected, and to flaunt that, and I know the nudist community is probably, the most freeing, most liberating thing to probably be a part of, because you don't have to worry about somebody criticizing you. But I think that exposure is only reserved for people who are married. And the reason that I'm bringing that up is because so oftentimes Scripture is used as this heavy-handed thing just to tell people what they can and they cannot do, what they can wear. Like, a woman can't wear pants, she can only wear dresses. It's just crazy stuff how people have used Scripture instead of just having open and honest conversation and saying, what does God really say about this issue? Because it's very muddy, it's very confusing on how we address it. And so what does Scripture say about attire and how we should wear? What